From Constitution Avenue in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., welcome to the 2022 National Memorial Day Parade and the 250-voice Memorial Day Festival Chorus.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2022 National Memorial Day Parade presented by Boeing. I'm Anthony Anderson.
And I'm Joe Buck. We would like to welcome all of our viewers joining us today from across the country and our service members watching around the world on American Forces Network.
From Constitution Avenue in Washington, D.C. to historic sites across the country, today's show will commemorate the story of our shared history and sacrifice. Along the way, we'll be joined by special guests, including Chris Pratt, Gary Sinise, Jimmy Kimmel, cast from Top Gun Maverick, and many more. We'll also feature musical performances from country stars Jimmy Allen and Eli Young Band, along with performances from bands from the United States military, all in honor of the spirit that unites us all.
To kick off today's coverage, streetside on Constitution Avenue is a veteran of the British Royal Navy and now proud American citizen, celebrity chef Robert Irvine. Hello, Chef.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored to be part of this special salute to America as we return to Constitution Avenue for the first time since before the pandemic. I'll be bringing you coverage from the route and speaking with more special guests throughout the show. In keeping with tradition, members of the Metropolitan Police Department are making their way down Constitution Avenue, signaling the official kickoff of the parade. It takes a lot of volunteers to put on this parade. A special thanks goes out to all the young Marines, Civil Air Patrol cadets, and the hundreds of volunteers who are participating in today's event. This combined band of Arizona, the Higley Knights, and the Williams Field Black Hawk Regiment have built a tradition of excellence since their school openings.
Thank you, Robert. Leading the procession is a salute to our fallen heroes. Among the oldest military traditions in a full honor funeral is that of the riderless horse. The horse is led behind the caisson wearing an empty saddle with the rider's boots reversed in the stirrups, indicating the warrior will never ride again. It is a reminder of the true meaning of Memorial Day and the sacrifices made for our freedom.
Next up is the Ceremonial Honor Guard, consisting of marching platoons from each branch of the armed forces.
Hello, I'm Major General Alan Pittman, Commanding General of the Joint Task Force, National Capital Region, in the U.S. Army Military District of Washington. On behalf of all the women and men in the U.S. Army and the entire Joint Force serving in the National Capital Region, I'd like to welcome you to the in-person return of the National Memorial Day Parade. Every Memorial Day is marked with a solemn remembrance. It's a day of collective remembrance of all American service members who have died while in military service. It's a special day to reflect on what their sacrifice means to our country. Let us vow that their sacrifices should never be forgotten, not just on Memorial Day, but every day. We honor their legacies by maintaining the eternal vigilance that has kept our country free for 246 years. On this day, we are proud to represent our nation's military in today's parade and ask that you remember all our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians, and Coast Guardsmen who continue to serve in the U.S. and around the world. Thank you. Army strong, when it matters.
Joining us in this special opening tribute today are marching platoons from each branch of the armed forces, including the United States Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard.
And here is the Army's famed Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps from the 3rd United States Infantry Regiment. They are appearing in uniforms patterned after those worn by musicians in General George Washington's Continental Army. Next, we welcome the United States Park Police Horse-Mounted Unit, one of the oldest mounted patrol units in the United States. Thank you for joining us for the 2022 National Memorial Day Parade. We've just begun our coverage.
Now let's head down to Robert, who's standing by on Constitution Avenue.
I'm joined by two grateful Americans and longtime supporters of the parade, and two very dear friends of mine, Gary Sinise and Joe Matania. Gary, you've been part of the parade almost every year. Why do commemorations like this mean so important to Americans?
This whole weekend is about remembrance and honor and then salute and tribute and never forgetting. And that's what this parade is about, honoring and remembering.
And you have a great tradition of service in your family. Does that inspire your dedication to this holiday?
All 5 of my uncles were all World War II veterans, and I know Gary has a long tradition of that as well. And so I would bring a couple of my uncles, especially my Uncle Willie and his Uncle Jack, and to the concert every year and to the parade. And so just having that tradition, knowing that it's been a big part of our family, has been very important.
Tell us about the Gary Sinise Foundation.
The Gary Sinise Foundation was launched in 2011. I just decided to have a very broad mission where we can serve our Gold Star families, we can take care of our wounded, we entertain, we bring people outside the hospital and put on Invincible Spirit festivals, which Robert does all the food for those things. That's how we met.
Joe, question for you. What do you want Americans to remember about this weekend?
I think I want them to remember that if they had an enjoyable weekend, to just take a moment, a pause for a moment, and just think about it and realize that a big part of the reason they had an enjoyable weekend is because men and women throughout our country's history have sometimes paid the ultimate price to ensure that they have it yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Well, I'm humbled to talk to both of my mentors, my best friends. We appreciate you. Thank you. Back to you, Anthony and Joe.
The legendary pilots of the Tuskegee Airmen have inspired Americans for decades, breaking barriers and dominating the skies over Europe in World War II. But few Americans know that our first Top Guns were a team of 4 Tuskegee Airmen. One of their survivors joins us as Grand Marshal.
Introducing the story of the Tuskegee Top Gun from the cast of Top Gun Maverick, we welcome Glenn Powell and Tom Cruise.
In 1969, at the order of the Chief of Naval Operations, the United States Naval Fighter Weapons School was established. Its mission? To train fighter air crews at the graduate level in all aspects of fighter weapon systems, including tactics, techniques, and doctrine. In the years since, it's become known by its popular name, Top Gun. 20 years earlier, in 1949, the United States Air Force gathered together teams of its top pilots for the first weapons meet in American military history. Distinguishing themselves above all others was a team of Red Tails, Tuskegee Airmen from World War II, who proved they too had the right stuff.
Outside Las Vegas, May 1949. Teams of elite pilots from across the newly formed U.S. Air Force gathered in the desert for the inaugural Continental Gunnery Meet. Known today as the Red Flag, it is remembered in history as the very first Top Gun. They were the best of the best, testing their flying and weapon skills. Among the pilots was a team representing the 332nd, including Lieutenant Harry Stewart. Joining were Reserve Pilot Lieutenant Halbert Alexander and fellow lead pilots Captain Alva Temple and Lieutenant James H. Harvey III. Trained at Tuskegee, Harvey was en route to Europe when Germany surrendered. "Hitler knew I was coming," he was fond to say. Early each morning before the desert heat, teams competed across events in aerial gunnery, skip bombing, rocketry, dive bombing, and panel strafing. Flying the P-47 Thunderbolt, Harvey, Stewart, and Temple dominated the competition. By the end of the meet, the Tuskegee team stood at the top of the standings, earning the title of history's first Top Guns.
We are honored to present the Grand Marshal of the 2022 National Memorial Day Parade, the Tuskegee Top Gun, Lieutenant Colonel James H. Harvey III. After becoming history's first Top Gun in 1949, Colonel Harvey would go on to become a decorated fighter pilot in the Korean War. Among our last living Tuskegee Airmen and our first Top Gun, and an American legend.
Word came down from the Chief of Staff that they were going to hold a weapons meet. Each squadron was to compete against each other. We met with Colonel Davis, and his final remark was, "If you don't win, don't come back." That was our incentive to win. We weren't supposed to be that good. We proved them wrong.
Last December marked 80 years since the attack on Pearl Harbor and America's entry into World War II. We are honored to be joined by surviving heroes of our World War II generation, helping to lead our commemoration in honor of the more than 400,000 of their comrades who did not come home.
Joining them is longtime friend of the parade, actor Joe Mantegna. Joe has joined the National Memorial Day Parade from the very beginning 15 years ago.
Their participation is made possible with support from the Gary Sinise Foundation, founded by actor and humanitarian Gary Sinise. The Frank W. Ballou Majestic Marching Knights from Washington, D.C. is an award-winning band with heart and soul that uses musicianship, hard work, discipline, and compassion to overcome all obstacles. The band has proudly appeared for more than a decade. And now let's head back to Robert.
And with David Walker, president of the Coalition to Salute America's Heroes. Under Mr. Walker's leadership, the coalition has become one of the most respected veterans charities in the nation. And we're honored to have his support and have him right here. So David, tell us, what does Memorial Day mean to you?
Memorial Day means so much. There are three meaningful things to me individually beyond that. First off is personal, the remembrance of family and friends that have served. Secondly, reverence. At the Coalition to Salute America's Heroes, we support our combat wounded veterans on the war on terror. And thirdly, and most significantly, sacred honor, what it means for our country. So Memorial Day today means a lot, but it means a big thank you for those that have come before us.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. And now let's head back to Anthony and Joe.
Thank you, Robert. This float is made possible by the Gary Sinise Foundation, founded by actor and humanitarian Gary Sinise, who has joined the parade annually since its beginnings. Through his nonprofit, today they honor the families of our fallen heroes. Each child and surviving spouse you see represent a military service member who is no longer with us.
At the Gary Sinise Foundation, they not only honor the families of our fallen, they help our nation's most severely wounded military members, support our veterans, provide for our first responders, and so much more. Learn more about their impact and to support, visit GarySiniseFoundation.org. Throughout our show, we will travel from Constitution Avenue to sites across the country as we share the story of American service and sacrifice from our very beginnings 250 years ago to the modern day.
And from our beginnings Native Americans have served in the U.S. military, serving through every era for more than 200 years. Let's head to the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, for a performance by the Native Nations Dance Theater. And traveling to Wyoming's Wind River country near Yellowstone National Park, we are now joined by the Northern Arapaho and Eastern Shoshone dancers.
From Oklahoma, here is the Fort Sill Auxiliary Half Section. It is the only horse-drawn artillery unit in the United States Army. It is an authentic representation of the late 1920s in uniforms and the French 75 gun. We'll be back for more coverage of the 2022 National Memorial Day Parade right after this.
Throughout our history, service and sacrifice have brought our nation together. On Memorial Day, we remember our military service members and their families who made the ultimate sacrifice. We at the Boeing Company pause to honor them and their dedication to protect and defend freedom across the globe. Thank you to the American Veterans Center for preserving the legacy of our veterans and for making this parade possible.
Coming up, our story of American service and sacrifice continues. And later, musical performances from Eli Young Band and Jimmy Allen. The 2022 National Memorial Day Parade, presented by Boeing, is brought to you by U-Haul, Veterans United Home Loans, Alpha Prime, and by the American Veterans Center. Join our mission at AmericanVeteransCenter.org. The 2022 National Memorial Day Parade, presented by Boeing, is brought to you by AmVets, Homes for Veterans, Military Times, the State of Qatar, and by American Airlines, official airline of the National Memorial Day Parade.
Welcome back to Constitution Avenue and the 2022 National Memorial Day Parade, presented by Boeing. Visit the American Veterans Center on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay up to date on all of their programs throughout the year.
And now let's head back to Constitution Avenue in our nation's capital. Opened in 1930, Newport Harbor High School sits on the bluffs above Newport Beach, overlooking the Pacific Ocean in California. The Marching Sailor Regiment was established in 1939, and since then has gone on to perform for thousands of people in venues across California.
We are honored to introduce our next float, featuring family members who have lost loved ones that served in the armed forces. The Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, known as TAPS, provides hope, help, and healing to those grieving the death of a service member. The families you see in the parade represent over 100,000 members of the TAPS family. Riding on the float is Bonnie Carroll, founder and president of TAPS. And look who's joining her, Chef Robert Irvine, a longtime friend of TAPS. Robert is taking a break from parade duties to support their cause. Our American story continues as we remember the words that inspired our American Revolution and people seeking freedom around the world since. To share that story, from the original Broadway cast of the now iconic musical Hamilton, we welcome Renee Elise Goldsberry.
July 4th, 1776, from Philadelphia, the Continental Congress made a declaration that would ring through the ages. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. It was a revolutionary statement, and it was a promise to which future generations would turn. from the movement for women's suffrage to Dr. Martin Luther King's dream that one day our nation would live out the true meaning of its creed. 11 years after the Declaration of Independence, delegates gathered in Philadelphia once more. Brought together by James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, they formed a new constitution where government would answer to we, the people. Today, it is the oldest written national constitution still in force. And for more than 200 years, it has been an inspiration to constitutions around the world.
Here at the National Archives are housed the documents that tie us all together: the Declaration, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. Now we continue the story of the American Revolution.
The fifes and drums of Yorktown originated in 1975 to commemorate the bicentennial celebration in Yorktown, Virginia. They perform over 80 shows a year for audiences in Yorktown, at George Washington's Mount Vernon, and at events in Washington and Philadelphia.
General George Washington traveled 16 miles up the road from his home in Mount Vernon to join us on Constitution Avenue.
Our revolution was caused by a revolution in thinking. The ideas of liberty, equality, justice would not be purchased cheaply. It was always those who were willing to pay the price with their very lives that have brought us these ideals.
Next is a large replica of the original American flag that Betsy Ross was said to have created in Philadelphia during the American Revolution. The flag is sponsored by American Military University.
The Sons of the American Revolution is one of the oldest patriotic organizations in the United States. Each of its more than 37,000 members is a descendant of at least one patriot of the American Revolution. The SAR's activities commemorate the people and events of the American Revolution.
Heading to the Constitution State, Connecticut, we welcome the oldest fife and drums corps in the nation, the Mattatuck Drum Band, organized in 1767, prior to the Revolution. And now to the birthplace of the American Revolution, the Bay State of Massachusetts.
We are the Acton Minutemen from Acton, Massachusetts. This is where the Battle of the Old North Bridge was fought on the opening day of the American Revolution.
For more than 20 years, the musical band of Brothers of Eli Young Band have topped the country charts, and this summer, they're back on the road on a 51-city tour.
For the video of the band's platinum single, Love Ain't, they worked with Wounded Warrior Project to spotlight the story of love and resilience of a severely wounded soldier and his wife. Ladies and gentlemen, from Constitution Avenue with Love Ain't, Eli Young Band.
Hotels are made for 2-night stays, checking in and out. Meeting strangers in the lobby, waking up and leaving town the next day. Love ain't. And whiskey's poured for when you're bored and alone on Friday night. When you want to lose yourself and need a place to hide from all the pain. But love ain't. Love ain't. Sad movies are for crying on the couch there in the dark. That sad song, it was written just to try and get your heart break. But love ain't. Love ain't. You on a sidewalk in your new dress all alone. Love ain't. You calling me 'cause he ain't picking up his phone. The way you're talking sounds like he's somebody you should hate. I may not know what love is, girl, but I 'cause he can only show you what love ain't. Love ain't. Hey, yeah. Love ain't.
We'll be back with more of the National Memorial Day Parade after this.
Coming up, our American story continues. Plus, appearances from Dennis Quaid and Matthew Broderick, with musical guest Jimmy Allen and the United States Air Force Band.
Why do we call it Your Commissary? Simple. From active duty, retiree, or disabled veteran, you've earned it.
That's why we strive to provide huge savings with our weekly deals, digital coupons, and low-price commissary store brands, as well as our healthy options, like our nutritious grab-and-go stations.
Either way, you're using your benefit to get savings, convenience, and great customer service. Your Commissary.
Serving those who serve.
See you at the commissary.
The 2022 National Memorial Day Parade, presented by Boeing, is brought to you by Idaho Potato Truck, U-Haul, TAPS, and by the State of Kuwait.
Welcome back to our salute to American service and sacrifice.
Our story continues with the creation of our national anthem during the War of 1812, as told by Dennis Quaid.
September 14, 1814. Watching the epic British bombardment of Fort McHenry from Baltimore Harbor, Francis Scott Key was inspired to write a poem, which he set to the lyrics of an old British drinking song. It was a fitting birth for the Star-Spangled Banner. The early years of the Republic were both aspirational and rowdy. The democratic spirit spread across the country into new territories and states, opening new opportunities for this new, slightly wild people known as Americans. That rambunctious spirit made its way to Texas, where American settlers and Tejanos declared their independence from Mexico, leading to their epic stand at the Alamo. The early republic was embodied by a new generation of Americans feeling their freedom. But not all Americans were free. Millions remained enslaved. Their freedom would not come for several decades and only be secured through a terrible cost of blood.
From Baltimore, Maryland, and historic Fort McHenry National Monument, the home of the Star-Spangled Banner, here is the U.S. Army Field Band from the Military District of Washington.
From Boston Harbor, here is the USS Constitution Color Guard. Launched in 1797, Constitution gained acclaim during the War of 1812, earning the nickname Old Ironsides. Constitution is the oldest ship still in commission and the world's oldest ship still afloat.
Leading a replica of the Star-Spangled Banner down Constitution Avenue is General Andrew Jackson. Long before becoming president, Jackson won a decisive victory at the Battle of New Orleans at the end of the War of 1812.
The broad stripes and bright stars of the Star-Spangled Banner inspired Francis Scott Key to pen the poem that became our national anthem. The original Star-Spangled Banner is housed just yards away at the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History along the National Mall. The flag is carried by employees from Grant Thornton.
Welcome, the East Central Marching Trojan Band from the state of Indiana. East Central High School Performing Arts represents approximately 25% of the overall student body at the high school.
From San Antonio, Texas, here are living historians commemorating the epic Battle of the Alamo in the Texas Revolution in 1836, led by William Travis, James Bowie, and Davy Crockett.
By the mid-1800s, the United States stood as the only major self-governing constitutional republic in the world. At the same time, 4 million of its people were still held in bondage. That conflict would lead to civil war and the battlefield deaths of more than 600,000 Americans. Introducing our next segment, we welcome Tony-winning actor of stage and screen, Matthew Broderick.
On March 4th, 1865, the Civil War in its final days, Abraham Lincoln delivered his second inaugural address. With malice toward none, with charity for all, he called on the nation to bind its wounds. The wounds were extraordinary. 2% of Americans were killed in the war. That translates to 6.5 million today. Barely a month following his address, Lincoln himself would be killed. And yet the 4 years of war had witnessed new freedoms. Nearly 200,000 African Americans would serve in the United States Army. They fought with distinction, suffered heavy casualties, and were awarded 16 Medals of Honor. Born into slavery, Frederick Douglass had become one of the country's great writers and orators. After the war, Douglass noted, "We saw our brave sons and brothers laying off the rags of bondage and being clothed all over in blue uniforms." In his Gettysburg Address, Lincoln called for a rededication to the larger cause for which so many had died, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth.
Serving as a living monument to honor the black men who lost their lives while fighting for the Union cause in the Civil War. Here is Company A, 54th Massachusetts Regiment from Boston, Massachusetts.
With malice toward none, with charity for all, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds. These words were so eloquently spoken by Abraham Lincoln during his second inaugural address and demonstrate his devotion toward healing a shattered nation. President Lincoln is riding in a carriage pulled by a draft horse from Harmon's Carriages and Training in Brandy Station, Virginia. We thank Sunbelt Rentals for their support of his participation.
The Sons of Union Veterans of Civil War was formed in 1881 to carry out the traditions and memory of the Grand Army of the Republic. It was a fraternal organization of the United States soldiers and sailors who fought the Civil War to preserve our Union. Please welcome female reenactors of distinction, known as Freed, from the African American Civil War Museum here in Washington, D.C. They honor American women of the Civil War era who reinforced the quality of life that each of us enjoys today.
Thank you, Robert. Established by President Lincoln in 1861, the Medal of Honor is our nation's highest recognition of valor in combat. Earned through every major conflict since the Civil War, the Medal of Honor commemorates those who willingly risked their lives to serve our highest ideals. We are honored to be joined by Medal of Honor recipient Melvin Morris. Their participation is made possible by the National Medal of Honor Museum Foundation, tasked with construction of the forthcoming museum in Arlington, Texas, opening in 2024. He is joined by Foundation President and CEO, retired Navy SEAL and astronaut Captain Chris Cassidy. Their participation is made possible by American Airlines. We spoke with Sergeant First Class Morris on the meaning of the medal.
The Medal of Honor is a lot of weight to carry because the Medal of Honor, it represents all those before me. And so it's something I hold my head up high with because I know the sacrifices men made because I've seen it. And so we have to honor those that have given their lives. But they lost it giving, not taking.
To perform the classic Anthem to Freedom, Battle Hymn of the Republic, we welcome the United States Air Force Band, featuring soloist Solomon Howard.
In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with a glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make men holy, let us die to make men free, while God is marching on.
Stay tuned for more of the National Memorial Day Parade from Constitution Avenue and from across the nation.
Indiana's Culver Military Academy focuses on leadership lessons to develop young men and women in mind, body, and spirit. Each Memorial Day, they honor Culver's alumni who sacrificed and served in 2 world wars, Korea, Vietnam, and the global war on terrorism. The cadets thank all veterans who served and wish everyone a meaningful and reflective Memorial Day.
Next up, the parade moves into the 20th century, and performances by Jimmy Allen, and a moving tribute to those who have sacrificed for freedom. Coming to us from Ukraine. The 2022 National Memorial Day Parade, presented by Boeing, is brought to you by American Military University, Sunbelt Rentals, Veterans United Home Loans, and by the American Veterans Center. Join our mission at AmericanVeteransCenter.org.
Welcome back. We would like to thank the American Veterans Center for organizing today's parade. The AVC revived the tradition of an annual Memorial Day parade along Constitution Avenue in 2005, after it had faded away 6 decades earlier during World War II.
To join the AVC's mission, visit AmericanVeteransCenter.org. Before becoming president, Theodore Roosevelt gained acclaim leading the famed Rough Riders during the Spanish-American War. He was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor for his legendary charge up San Juan Hill and is the only president to have received the nation's highest military award.
Here are the 1st USV Regiment, the Rough Riders. They are both a charitable and historical society whose mission is to keep alive the historical contributions of Theodore Roosevelt and the men who served alongside him.
Wild Bill Hickok from historic Deadwood, South Dakota. Deadwood has a long history of patriotism, and we aim to keep it that way. I'm here, along with some friends. Deadwood, South Dakota gives credit and our thanks to the men and women of the United States Armed Forces.
This next float comes to us from the Lions Clubs of Washington, D.C., Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. Founded in 1917 during the First World War, this marks their 11th year participating in the parade. Lions Clubs International is the world's largest service club organization, with 1.4 million members in over 200 countries or geographic areas. Lions Clubs International is celebrating over 100 years of service. The float proudly displays the current year theme, Service from the Heart, to represent the goals of Lions worldwide. Next up, from the Lone Star State of Texas, is the new Tech Titan Regiment Band. Let's take a listen.
And now we head back to Robert Irvine on Constitution Avenue. Beyond being a veteran, Robert has launched a foundation in support of our veterans and military men and women. Robert, tell us a bit about the work of the Robert Irvine Foundation.
Thank you, Anthony. I want to talk a little bit about the Robert Irvine Foundation that does great things for our men and women that wear the cloth of our nation, our veterans, our Gold Star families, and first responders. Check it out, robertirvinefoundation.org. Stay with us. We'll be back with more of the National Memorial Day Parade.
Next up from Washington, D.C., the National Memorial Day Parade salutes America's greatest generation. The 2022 National Memorial Day Parade, presented by Boeing, is brought to you by DSS Incorporated, Veterans in Defense of Liberty, and by Veterans United Home Loans. The upcoming segment of our parade is brought to you by Leidos.
On February 19, 2007, my Humvee was hit by a roadside bomb. I feel like I should have died on the battlefield, but I'm here. I feel like God's given me an opportunity to grow as an individual and have another lease on life. The Coalition Salute America's Heroes is the leading nonprofit that is helping veterans across this nation. They've already saved countless lives, and they can save countless more lives. We need your help.
Visit saluteheroes.org to learn more.
Welcome back to our coverage of the 2022 National Memorial Day Parade, presented by Boeing. Visit the American Veterans Center on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay up to date throughout the year. I'm Joe Buck.
And I'm Anthony Anderson. Our next performer has been blazing trails since the start of his breakout career. Multi-platinum recording artist Jimmy Allen was nominated for Best New Artist at the Grammy and NAACP Image Awards, and was nominated for Male Artist of the Year at the 57th ACM Awards, which he co-hosted alongside Dolly Parton and Gabby Barnett. He joins us today to perform Down Home, a song in memory of his late father and military veteran, affectionately known as Big Jim. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Allen.
I bet you're up there making new friends. I'm pretty sure you're loving every minute. If there's a golden pond full of fish, I bet you already caught everything in it. I bet you're making everybody laugh with your jokes. I know you're holding nothing but the best kind of hope, shining a light up there with a big old smile. And meanwhile, down home, oh, you know mama's still cooking them down home grits. I promise I'm working with this guitar about as hard as I can. I met a girl, bought a house, put a nice little payment down home. It's still where my heart is, it's down home, kid. It's just how you left them, I still hate that you're gone. I wish you were here, but I hope I'm making you proud to know you up there looking down home, yeah. There ain't a day down here that goes by that I don't climb up in my F-150 on a back road bumping Charlie Pride. Yeah, every song keeps you right here with me. I got a daughter now, I really wish you'd have met. Yeah, she's walking now, but I know you see every step. I wear the number 15 every chance I get. So when you're looking through the clouds, Daddy, you can bet they're down home. Oh, you know mama's still cooking them down home grits. I promise I'm working with this guitar about as hard as I can. I met a girl, bought a house, and put a nice little payment down home. It's still where my heart is, it's down home, kid. It's just how you left them, I still hate that you're gone. I wish you were here, but I hope I'm making you proud to know you're up there looking down home, yeah. Down home. Daddy, don't you worry, oh no, 'cause everything's good down home, yeah. And oh, yeah, down home, oh, you know mama's still cooking them down home grits. I promise I'm working with this guitar about as hard as I can. I met a girl, bought a house, and put a nice little payment down home. It's still where my heart is down home, kid. It's just how you left them, I still hate that you're gone. I wish you were here, but I hope I'm making you proud to know you up there looking down home, yeah. And down home, and down home. We still miss you, we still miss you, we miss you down home.
Thank you, country music sensation Jimmy Allen. At the turn of the 20th century, two brothers from Ohio would change the course of history, creating the world we know today. To share the story of the birth of flight, we welcome Howie Mandel.
In Dayton, Ohio, in a small home with no electricity, running water, or indoor plumbing, two American boys grew up inspired to change the world. Orville and Wilbur Wright developed a lifelong fascination with flight. Spending a total of $1,000, the Wright brothers built a prototype for a self-powered flyer. Now, on December 17th, 1903, in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, Orville Wright piloted the flyer for 59 seconds. Two boys from Ohio had invented the airplane. For thousands of years, man had looked to the skies, imagining the possibility of flight. Less than 15 years after the Wright brothers, American pilots battled the Red Baron over Europe. 44 years after Kitty Hawk, Chuck Yeager would break the speed of sound. And only 22 years after that, Neil Armstrong would set foot on the moon. Today, we take for granted the ability to jump from New York to LA in a matter of hours. But not even 120 years ago, it was still just an idea made possible by two boys from Dayton.
Welcome to Wright Brothers National Memorial. It was here, in the area just behind me, that Orville Wright piloted the Wright Flyer on its first successful flight in 1903. In 2021, the Wright brothers made history once more when a piece of their original flyer made the journey to Mars. Aboard the Mars Ingenuity helicopter, it took flight once more, marking the first time humankind had launched powered flights on another planet.
Service flags were first hung in the windows of American homes during the First World War. A blue star on the white field signifies a family member who is currently serving. A gold star signifies a family member who has died in their service. Among the most solemn symbols of the Memorial Day holiday, this Gold Star banner is carried by members of the Gold Star spouses who've lost a husband or wife while serving.
Marching down Constitution Avenue is a contingent of soldiers from one of America's long-standing allies, the Army of Australia. Approximately 50 Australian Army personnel, ranging in rank from corporal to brigadier general, are participating today. On July 4th, 1918, American and Australian soldiers first fought together in France during the First World War. Ever since, they have stood side by side in every era around the globe.
On April 16, 2021, the American flag was raised for the first time over the newly dedicated World War I Memorial in Pershing Park, Washington, D.C. The memorial is dedicated to the 4.7 million Americans who served during the war and the 116,516 who made the ultimate sacrifice. Among the memorial's strongest advocates was the last surviving veteran of the First World War, Frank W. Buckles, who joined the National Memorial Day Parade prior to his passing in 2011.
Here in Kansas City at the nation's World War I Memorial, where hundreds of thousands of people every year come to remember and to reflect on the lives of those and who served not only in World War I, but in conflict since then, as the enduring impact of that great war continues to impact our world today. We remember their service. We will not forget.
Here comes the marching cadets of Concordia Lutheran High School from Fort Wayne, Indiana. This is their second year participating in the National Memorial Day Parade. Back home in Indiana, the marching cadets have qualified for marching band state finals for the last 14 consecutive years, including state championships in 2013. In addition, their concert programs consistently receive gold ratings at contests.
For Americans during World War II, it was truly a national effort.
With millions of young men headed overseas, young American women stepped up to take their place in the factories, building tanks, ships, and planes. Earning the iconic nickname Rosie the Riveter, many of these young women traveled to California and the Pacific Coast, where shipyards and airplane factories worked overtime. While the Rosies built airplanes in Burbank and Long Beach, Hollywood joined the war effort as well. Leading directors like Frank Capra, John Ford, and John Huston joined the military, capturing footage from the front lines. Clark Gable, Henry Fonda, and Gene Kelly were among the stars who signed up. In It's a Wonderful Life, Jimmy Stewart plays a man who watched his friends and family go off to fight. In reality, Stewart was fresh from service as a bomber pilot in the Army Air Forces, where he flew 20 combat missions. After losing comrades over the skies of Germany and nearly being shot down himself, Stewart suffered from what we now recognize as post-traumatic stress during the filming of his most iconic role.
By the end of World War II, American industry had produced 300,000 airplanes, 100,000 tanks, 90,000 ships, and 44 billion rounds of ammunition. The arsenal of democracy that won the war had truly been built by the hands of millions of American women. And we are honored to be joined by several of these women, Rosie the Riveters of World War II, riding on a float made possible by Boeing. Their mantra, "We can do it." Wise words, then and now. We spoke with one of our surviving Rosies, May Cryer, on her experience.
You know, up until 1941, it was a man's world. And they didn't know that how capable American women were. We had to learn how to drill holes, and then we had to learn how to rivet. Right after that, 2 weeks in we go, working with these big airplanes. We had one purpose, and that was to win the war, to make the equipment that our men needed to win the war.
80 years ago, Americans of all backgrounds were called on to serve during World War II. They came from every city and every town across the country, and they served around the world in places they'd never heard of: Monte Cassino, Iwo Jima, Omaha Beach. 16 million would serve in uniform. They were our aunts and uncles, our grandmothers and grandfathers, our mothers and our fathers. More than 400,000 of them would not come home. Lives lost long ago for the promise of a better world. As the last of our World War II generation passes on, let us always remember their sacrifice and the cause of human dignity for which they stood.
Leading our salute to the World War II generation are flags representing the 26 original Allied nations of the war. The flags are being carried by cadets from the Civil Air Patrol, the official auxiliary of the United States Air Force, celebrating its 75th anniversary in 2022.
From Newton Grove, North Carolina, here are the Marching Wildcats of Hobton High School. The band is made up of 9th through 12th graders and has won numerous awards in marching band competitions and parades celebrating the American spirit.
Next up is U-Haul, the industry leader in do-it-yourself moving and self-storage. U-Haul was founded by a World War II Navy veteran and his wife in 1945. U-Haul and its 30,000 plus team members continue to honor our veterans and pay homage to the brave souls who have given everything for our way of life. This Memorial Day has added significance for U-Haul and its efforts to preserve the memory of our fallen heroes. A generous donation from the Schoen family of U-Haul has helped renovate the Ford Island Control Tower at Pearl Harbor.
Riding on our next parade float are several living American treasures, surviving veterans of World War II. Today, about 200,000 World War II veterans survive. 16 million Americans served in uniform during the war. And I'm proud to say that among them were my grandfather, an officer in the Navy, and my dad, Jack, an infantry squad leader in Europe, where he was awarded the Purple Heart in the famed capture of the bridge at Remagen. Witnesses to history, these heroes join us in honor of their entire generation. Their support is made possible with support from U-Haul. we were honored to speak with the last living recipient of the Medal of Honor from World War II, Herschel Woody Williams.
The World War II generation was a tough, committed, country-loving, believing in freedom group of people. The people today need to remember that of our freedom. If we ever lose it, we will never, ever be able to regain it.
Keep the Spirit of 45 Alive is a national nonprofit coalition whose mission is to promote awareness so that the example of our greatest generation will continue to inspire future generations of Americans, especially the youth of our nation. Young Americans participating in this campaign join us to pay tribute to the sacrifices made by our World War II generation and are carrying photos of heroes of that war.
We'll be back with more right after this.
Coming up, we honor the fallen of the Korean and Vietnam Wars, and performances from the United States Air Force Band and a moving tribute from Ukraine. The 2022 National Memorial Day Parade, presented by Boeing, is brought to you by AmVets, Lions Club International, service from the heart, and by Coalition to Salute America's Heroes. The 2022 National Memorial Day Parade, presented by Boeing, is brought to you by Military Times, Veterans United Home Loans, and by the State of Kuwait. The upcoming segment of our parade is brought to you by AmVets.
My fellow citizens, on this day, we are humbled to honor all those who have served the Republic in the defense of freedom. The United States is indeed an exceptional nation, and our military, the purest and bravest of us all. Today, we honor and remember the best this nation has ever produced, our heroes who have sacrificed all to defend freedom. God bless them all, and thank you.
Hey, what's up, guys? Channing Tatum here.
This is Ray Romano.
Dirk Bentley here.
Reba McEntire.
Conan O'Brien.
What's up? This is Jack Black.
To all who have served and are serving,
Massive thank you.
Thank you for everything you have done.
Thank you for all of your sacrifices.
You guys give it all. You give it your all.
Thank you, and we appreciate everything you do.
Thanks to what you're doing, we are still
the land of the free and the home of the brave.
We appreciate you more than you know.
For your bravery, strength, and service. I hope y'all stay safe. God bless you.
God bless you guys. Thank you so much.
God bless you. Stay safe.
We're thinking about you on this Memorial Day.
Thank you so much for all you do for us. We love you with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength.
There's no city quite like New Orleans. It was bought by the United States in the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. By the 20th century, the brass bands of New Orleans combined ragtime, marches, and blues, creating a new and completely American style of music, jazz. Jazz would travel the country, coming back in the big band swing music that dominated the dance halls of the Second World War. And it was during World War II that New Orleans built the famed Higgins boats that proved vital to victory on D-Day. It's why, more than 75 years later, the birthplace of jazz is also home to America's National World War II Museum.
Our next segment takes us to one of America's iconic cities, New Orleans. To start things off, here is the 4th Marine Aircraft Wing Color Guard. Here is the Marine Forces Reserve Band. The famed brass bands of New Orleans grew out of military marching bands of the 19th century. Arriving on this larger-than-life Mardi Gras showboat are members of 2 of the world's famous Mardi Gras crews. Next up is the crew of Endymion. This crew has hosted many entertainers each year at Mardi Gras. Here now are the young Seminole Hunters. And to close things out from New Orleans, we welcome the crew of Bacchus. Mardi Gras' first super crew. Welcome back, everyone, to our nation's capital, Washington, D.C.
Our next segment honors the heroes of the Korean War. This horse represents Sergeant Reckless, America's greatest war horse and a Korean War hero. The horse is wearing an authentic blanket of the one worn by Sergeant Reckless, complete with ribbons. She is led by retired Marine Corps veteran Lieutenant Colonel James Schaefer.
Our next float is from Veterans in Defense of Liberty, a national brotherhood of veterans bound by their lifelong oath to support and defend our Constitution. Honoring veterans from across our history, they are joined by very special guests, veterans of the Korean War.
Often referred to as the Forgotten War, the Korean War was one of the deadliest conflicts in American history, with more than 128,000 casualties. In the summer of 2022, a new wall of remembrance will be dedicated at the Korean War Memorial on the National Mall, including the names of 43,000 service members killed in that war. Today, veterans of the war join us in honor of their fallen comrades.
The Belton Pirate Pride Marching Band from the state of Missouri is thrilled to be marching today as the Belton community is celebrating its sesquicentennial birthday. Belton's motto is Proud Past, Bright Future. The marching band remembers the impact of Richards-Gebaur Air Force Base, which defined the city for 50 years, with band members wearing memorial buttons to pay tribute to the family, friends, and area citizens who have sacrificed for our country.
The 1960s began with hope. The nation's optimistic spirit was personified in its young president, John F. Kennedy, who challenged his country to land a man on the moon before the end of the decade. Hope also came in the form of another man. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. had come to prominence leading the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955. By the early 60s, Dr. King had become a preeminent leader in the civil rights movement. His 1963 I Have a Dream speech rings through history, speaking to our highest aspirations. And yet hope and faith in America would be tested, first with the assassination of President Kennedy. Meanwhile, the country was divided as millions of young Americans dutifully answered the call to serve in Vietnam. Then on April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in Memphis. The 1960s proved that times and fortunes can quickly change, and yet there remain moments that still bring us together. In the closing months of the decade, millions of Americans gathered around televisions to watch Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin fulfill President Kennedy's challenge.
It's one small step for man,
and set foot on the moon, a moment of hope made possible through sheer American determination.
At the west end of the National Mall, the Lincoln Memorial was dedicated 100 years ago in 1922. In the century since, it has been the scene of iconic moments in American history, none more so than Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech from the memorial steps.
2022 marks 40 years since the dedication of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. Today, 53,318 names of fallen Americans are engraved on the black granite wall, which is visited by 3 million people each year. Leading our tribute to those who served in Vietnam are motorcycles from Rolling to Remember. Rolling Thunder, Virginia, Chapter 3 is based in Dumfries, Virginia, and one of over 90 Rolling Thunder chapters from across the United States. American veterans, or better known as AMVETS, and Humana have a strong, long-time partnership to improve the lives of veterans and their families. AMVETS is the most inclusive, congressionally chartered veteran service organization, open to all veterans.
Our next float features veterans of the Vietnam War and Special Operations Forces. 2.7 million Americans served in Vietnam, and 58,000 did not come home. Those who did never received the welcome home they deserve. To our Vietnam veterans watching today, thank you for your service.
Here are members from the Korean Vietnam War Veterans Association of the Greater Washington area.
Hi, I'm Bruce Melnick, and I'd like to welcome you to the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. I'm a veteran of 2 space shuttle missions back in 1990 and 1992, and the first Coast Guard astronaut to fly in space. We're very close to the launch pads where Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin took off to be the first human beings that landed on the moon. And now we're looking forward to the future where the Artemis program is going to take our first woman to land on the moon. Also, this is the home of the Space Mirror Memorial, where we pay tribute to the 24 astronauts that gave the ultimate sacrifice in the pursuit of exploration, which we are going to continue here with our Artemis mission.
We'll be right back from Washington, D.C. and around the country with more of the National Memorial Day Parade.
Coming up from Washington, D.C., remembering the Gulf War, Operation Desert Storm. The 2022 National Memorial Day Parade, presented by Boeing, is brought to you by American Military University, Homes for Veterans, American Airlines, official airline of the National Memorial Day Parade. And thank you to Leidos, a Fortune 500 technology, engineering, and science solutions leader, for sponsoring lunch to 1,000 active duty personnel participating in the parade. Leidos is working to solve the world's toughest challenges in the defense, intelligence, civil, and health markets.
On this Memorial Day, we stand with the people of the U.S. to pay our respect to the men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice in services of their country. Qatar hosts Al Udeid Air Base, home of the U.S. Central Command Forward Command, and more than 11,000 American servicemen and women. These brave troops work shoulder to shoulder with the Qatari service members in efforts to promote regional security. We are proud to be partners in peace for our region and across the world, and we commemorate them on this day of remembrance.
A special thanks to the state of Qatar.
Welcome back to Washington, D.C. and the 2022 National Memorial Day Parade. The Big Idaho Potato Truck is on its 10th cross-country journey. It began in 2012 as a one-year campaign to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Idaho Potato Commission, and it quickly became a big piece of pop culture. It travels the country promoting the certified heart-healthy Idaho potato and its mission to help small charities in towns and cities with its A Big Helping program. Not to mention that people just want to have their picture taken with a 4-ton Idaho potato.
Here comes the 100-member Fort Lee High School marching band representing the state of New Jersey and the community of Fort Lee. Fort Lee was named for Continental Army General Charles Lee and was the starting point for George Washington's retreat to victory, leading to the Battle of Trenton in 1776.
On August 2nd of 1990, Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. Soon, hundreds of thousands of Americans will be deployed to liberate Kuwait. And where the troops went,
Mr. Bob Hope.
So did Bob Hope. 50 years earlier, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, he led the first ever USO tour entertaining the troops on the front lines in Europe and the Pacific. The tours continued after World War II, becoming star-studded spectaculars during the Vietnam War. He became known as a one-man morale machine, and he inspired future generations to continue his legacy. Today, I am proud to serve as the USO Global Ambassador. Bob Hope's final USO tour would take him to the Middle East during the lead-up to the Gulf War, an American legend determined to make them laugh one last time.
This next float is brought to us by the state of Kuwait. Among the parade's earliest and strongest supporters, the people of Kuwait wish to convey their deep appreciation for those who served and those who fell in the fight to liberate their country. Kuwait remembers our Gulf War veterans. On behalf of the people of Kuwait, we have the following message from the ambassador to the United States, Ambassador Al-Sabah.
The very special relationship between Kuwait and the U.S. Armed Forces was forged and actually cemented during the first Gulf War. In 1990 and 91, we Kuwaitis watched in amazement and admiration as the U.S. Armed Forces put themselves in harm's way to liberate my country. And ever since that day, we've had a very special place in our hearts and our minds for the U.S. Armed Forces. And that's why we are present at Memorial Day with our float, and we will always be there to say thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Coming up, the parade's finale as we honor the sacrifice of today's generation. The 2022 National Memorial Day Parade, presented by Boeing, is brought to you by Robert Irvine Foundation, TAPS, and by the State of Qatar. The upcoming segment of our parade is brought to you by Veterans United Home Loans.
There are no words, there is no song. Is there a balm that can heal these wounds that last a lifetime long? And when the stars have burned to dust, hand in hand we still will stand, because we must. We were forged in freedom, we were born in liberty. We came here to stop the twisted arrows cast by tyranny, and we won't bow down. We are strong at heart, we're all chained together that won't be pulled apart. There are no words.
Welcome back to the 2022 National Memorial Day Parade. That was the Air Force Band performing There Are No Words, recorded in memory of those lost on September 11th, 2001.
Our parade timeline concludes as we honor those serving and sacrificing on the front lines today.
On Constitution Avenue, here is Naval Reserves Officer Jesse Iwuji, a football player at the United States Naval Academy. Today, Jesse is a professional race car driver and co-owner of a team with NFL legend Emmitt Smith. Jesse is joined by one of his drivers, the talented Kyle Weatherman. We spoke to Jesse before his latest race. Here's what he had to say.
Being the only service member currently serving while racing in NASCAR has been a massive blessing thanks to my wonderful partners at Equity Prime Mortgage. But I do it to represent our amazing heroes who have sacrificed so much so that we can have the freedoms that we have in this country.
As we honor the fallen from Operations Post September 11th, please welcome Chris Pratt.
June 28, 2005, deep in Afghanistan, Navy SEAL Lieutenant Michael P. Murphy and his small team came under attack. Braving fire, Murphy got into position to call for backup, risking his life to save his friends. Shot through the chest, Lieutenant Murphy still made that call. Roger that. Thank you, sir. He signed off before falling. Michael Murphy would be posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, the first for valor in Afghanistan. His valor and sacrifice proved emblematic of so many who served with honor among the generation of military serving us today. Thank you to all the servicemen and women who keep us safe.
Since the attacks of September 11th, 2001, more than 7,000 American service members have been killed in action around the world. As we remember those lost, let us honor their legacy by working to make ourselves and our country worthy of their sacrifice. We return to Constitution Avenue and a living example of American sacrifice. Retired Army Staff Sergeant Travis Mills is one of only 5 quadruple amputees to survive his injuries from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Losing his limbs to an IED in 2012, through the love of his family and his lifelong motto, never give up, never quit, Staff Sergeant Mills not only survived, he thrived. A motivational speaker and advocate, he established the Travis Mills Foundation in support of other recalibrated veterans and their families. An incredible story and an American hero.
Here is the Massachusetts Maritime Academy's Regimental Band, Honor Guard, and Drill Team, the pride of the regiment. Their mission is to provide music, military customs, and tradition to enhance the regiment of cadets' cohesion and morale. The company promotes the Massachusetts Maritime Academy mission by showcasing leadership, discipline, knowledge through music, drill, and ceremony performances at public and academy venues to recruit, retain, and inspire the regiment of cadets.
In memory of those lost throughout our history and those sacrificing for freedom around the world today, we welcome Sophia Pick performing Amazing Grace from Lviv, Ukraine.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Through many dangers, toils and snares, I have already come. Oh, 'twas grace had brought me safe this far, and grace will lead me home. We've no less days to sing God's praise than when
Thank you, Sophia, for that moving performance. Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
We'll be back for more parade from Constitution Avenue in Washington, D.C. The 2022 National Memorial Day Parade, presented by Boeing, is brought to you by TAPS and the American Veterans Center.
Thank you to the United States Air Force Band performing Call of the Champions.
And thank you for being with us for our salute to our heroes. We'd also like to thank Chef Robert Irvine for joining us from Constitution Avenue today.
And now we close with a salute to the men and women serving us today.
To those serving around the world today, and to those who have served and sacrificed throughout our history, a heartfelt thank you.